They had been planning this for weeks. 6 missile batteries, 18 anti-ship missiles, 1 American destroyer standing between them and the most powerful naval force on Earth. The Houthis were convinced they had found the perfect gap in American power. Hit the lead ship, sink it, scatter the formation, force the entire Armada to retreat. They had done the math. 18 missiles against 1 destroyer was impossible to survive. No ship in history had stopped that kind of coordinated saturation attack. They released a video that morning. A burning tanker. The caption read one word: soon. They were making a promise. 31 minutes later, that promise had cost them everything. 8 military bases reduced to rubble, 29 support facilities eliminated, every radar system within 100 kilometers of the Yemeni coast destroyed, their naval command structure wiped off the map, 0 American casualties, 0 damage to a single American ship. This is the full story of Operation Guardian Strike. What actually happened in those 31 minutes? The decisions made, the weapons fired, the tactics used, and why January 27, 2026 marked the end of the Houthi threat to Red Sea shipping. Stay with me, because this story goes far deeper than the missiles. To understand why the Houthis made this decision, you need to understand what they were looking at. USS Abraham Lincoln is not just a ship. It is a floating military base, 100,000 tons of nuclear-powered steel, 90 aircraft, a crew of over 5,000 sailors, pilots, and Marines. It carries more firepower than most nations possess in their entire military inventory. When the United States deploys a carrier strike group, it does not send one ship. It sends a formation, a carefully organized offensive structure that has been refined across decades of naval combat experience. At the center of that formation sits the carrier itself, protected on all sides by destroyers, cruisers, submarines, and support vessels. Aircraft constantly circling overhead, sensors reaching out hundreds of miles in every direction, submarines hunting beneath the surface. The USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group in January 2026 was exactly this: a complete armada sailing toward the Gulf of Aden with a mission to transit the Red Sea and project American military presence into a region that had grown increasingly dangerous. For months, Houthi rebels operating out of Yemen had been attacking commercial shipping in the Red Sea. Over 100 vessels struck since late 2023. Tankers, cargo ships, container vessels carrying goods from Asia to Europe. The attacks had disrupted global shipping lanes. Insurance costs for vessels transiting the Red Sea had skyrocketed. Major shipping companies were rerouting their fleets around the entire continent of Africa rather than risk the shorter route through the Suez Canal. The United States and its allies had responded with a multinational naval coalition designed to protect commercial shipping. American destroyers had been intercepting Houthi drones and missiles for months. The Houthis had been degraded but not eliminated. Then came the Gaza ceasefire negotiations. Iran, a primary sponsor of the Houthi movement, was facing increasing pressure. The regional balance of power was shifting. Tehran sent a message to its Houthi allies in Yemen: make the Americans pay. Show them the Red Sea is not theirs to control. The Houthis had a decision to make, and they made the wrong one. 50 miles ahead of the Lincoln, USS Sterrett was doing exactly what destroyers are built to do: screening. An Arleigh Burke class destroyer is the backbone of American surface warfare. Roughly 500 feet long, 9,000 tons fully loaded, armed with 96 vertical launch cells capable of firing surface-to-air missiles, cruise missiles, and anti-submarine weapons, equipped with the most advanced radar and combat management system ever put to sea. The Aegis combat system is what makes these ships special. It is not just a weapon. It is an integrated battle management network that can simultaneously track hundreds of targets, calculate threat priorities, assign weapons, and engage multiple inbound missiles faster than any human operator could ever manage manually. Commander Jennifer Martinez had commanded Sterrett for 14 months. She had run her crew through hundreds of drills, battle stations, missile defense exercises, coordinated engagement training with other ships in the strike group. She knew what her ship could do. On the morning of January 27th, she was watching the intelligence feeds carefully. Houthi communication traffic had increased. Encrypted messages were moving between known command locations across Yemen. Something was being coordinated. The video, released that morning, had not gone unnoticed. The burning tanker, the caption that said, "Soon." Intelligence analysts throughout the strike group were flagging it as a potential indicator of an imminent attack. Martinez put her crew at heightened alert. She did not know exactly what was coming, but she knew something was coming. What she could not have fully appreciated that morning was the full scope of the American response that had already been pre-authorized should the Houthis cross that line. Because Sterrett was not just a lone ship standing watch, it was the forward edge of a killing machine. In Sana'a, the Yemeni capital, controlled by Houthi forces, the Supreme Political Council had gathered. The American Armada was approaching. Iran had made its request clear. The Houthis had a reputation to protect. They had attacked over 100 vessels. They had forced global shipping to reroute. They had embarrassed American and British navies for months with drone and missile attacks that proved difficult to fully stop. But there had been a pause. The ceasefire related to the Gaza conflict had quieted the Red Sea for a period. Some analysts were suggesting the Houthi threat had been contained. The Houthi leadership saw the approaching carrier strike group as an opportunity to prove those analysts wrong. Their plan was built around a concept called saturation attack. The idea is straightforward. Any defensive system has limits. If you fire enough missiles from enough different directions at the same time, you can overwhelm those limits and get weapons through to the target. 18 missiles, 6 locations. The weapon of choice was the Chinese-made C-81 anti-ship missile, a subsonic sea-skimming weapon. It flies low over the water, below radar horizon for as long as possible, making detection difficult until it is close. It carries a warhead heavy enough to cause serious damage to a destroyer. It was designed specifically to kill warships. By launching from 6 geographically spread positions, the Houthis planned to force USS Sterrett to engage threats coming from multiple directions simultaneously. No single defensive system can easily handle that geometry. Missiles arriving from multiple directions at roughly the same time stress any combat system. Their targeting was deliberate. They picked a destroyer out front, not the carrier, not the center of the formation. The destroyer was the shield. Destroy the shield and the carrier is exposed. The logic was sound. The execution was catastrophic because they had made 6 assumptions that were all wrong. Mistake number 1, they assumed Sterrett was alone. USS Ralph Johnson, a second Arleigh Burke class destroyer, was operating 12 miles from Sterrett. Both ships had full Aegis systems. Both were tracking the same skies. When Sterrett came under attack, Ralph Johnson was already in position to engage in support. 2 Aegis systems working together do not simply double the defensive capacity, they multiply it. Coordination between 2 combat systems means overlapping engagement envelopes, shared targeting data, and the ability to prioritize threats and divide the defensive burden. The Houthis planned for 1 defender. They got 2. Mistake number 2, they did not account for the aircraft overhead. Or F/A-8 Super Hornets from USS Abraham Lincoln were flying combat air patrol above the formation. These aircraft were not just watching. They were armed with AIM-120 AIM-RAM missiles and had been briefed on the threat environment. When the attack began, those pilots had clear authority to engage incoming anti-ship missiles with air-to-air weapons. Using fighter aircraft to engage cruise missiles is not a standard tactic. It is difficult. Cruise missiles fly low and fast and are small targets. But American naval aviators train for exactly this scenario, and the AIM-RAM is a capable enough weapon to make those shots possible. The Houthis launched their missiles, expecting to face only ship-based defenses. They got fighter jets shooting at them from above as well. Mistake number 3, they did not know what was aboard USS Bataan. The amphibious assault ship USS Bataan was part of the formation. It carried 200 United States Marines. It had AH-1Z Viper attack helicopters fueled and ready. It had landing craft. It had force reconnaissance Marines prepared for exactly the kind of ground exploitation mission that would follow a strike. This meant that the American response was never going to be purely a standoff missile exchange. There were boots ready to go into Yemen and secure with the bombs destroyed. Mistake number 4. They believed their positions were unknown. Every Houthi missile battery that fired, every command bunker coordinating the attack, every radar installation supporting their operations, every fuel depot and ammunition storage facility, every leadership compound. United States intelligence had been mapping those positions for months. Satellites, signal intelligence, human intelligence, overhead surveillance. The coordinates were already in the targeting computers before the first Houthi missile left its launcher. Mistake number 5. They underestimated the pre-authorization. United States Central Command had already determined that a Houthi attack on ships protecting the carrier strike group would trigger a massive and immediate retaliatory response. That authorization was in place before the Armada entered the Gulf of Aden. There was no waiting for political approval once the missiles flew. The response was automatic, pre-planned, comprehensive. Mistake number 6. The most fundamental one: they did not understand what it means to fire at ships protecting an American carrier. There is a threshold in American military doctrine. Harassment of commercial shipping is one category. Attacks on Allied naval vessels are a more serious category. But a coordinated strike designed to sink a warship actively protecting an American carrier strike group is a declaration of war against the United States Navy. The response to that category of attack is not proportional. It is not a single retaliatory strike. It is the elimination of the threat at its source. The Houthis believed they were continuing their harassment campaign. They were not. They were crossing a line that carried consequences they had not prepared for. At 2 in the afternoon on January 27th, USS Sterrett detected the first signs of unusual Houthi activity. Commander Martinez had already placed her crew at heightened alert following the morning intelligence indicators. Now the surveillance picture was getting worse. Radio traffic was spiking. Encrypted communications were moving between known Houthi military sites. Her electronic warfare team was monitoring multiple frequencies. Her intelligence officer was correlating the communications pattern with known pre-attack signatures from previous Houthi operations. This was not random activity. At 3 in the afternoon, United States Space Force satellites detected thermal signatures at 6 separate locations across Yemen. Missile systems were activating. Launch preparation sequences were underway. The alert went immediately to 5th Fleet Headquarters in Bahrain, to USS Abraham Lincoln, to USS Bataan, and to every ship in the formation. Possible Houthi missile attack on Armada escorts. Imminent. Admiral Richardson aboard Lincoln did not hesitate. The carrier went to combat stations. Every aircraft on the flight deck that was capable of flight was either already airborne or being prepared for immediate launch. The attack helicopters on Bataan were spun up. The Marines were briefed and ready. The entire strike package that would devastate Yemen within the next 30 minutes was being armed, fueled, and positioned while the Houthi missiles were still on their launchers. At 3:15, Lincoln and Bataan went to full combat stations. At 3:35, the Houthi command transmitted final launch authorization to all 6 firing positions. Fire on the American destroyer, coordinate timing, overwhelm their defenses, sink the ship, execute. At 3:42, 18 missiles left their launchers. At the Hodeidah coastal battery, 4 anti-ship missiles launched in rapid sequence. The rockets ignited, the missiles dropped to sea-skimming altitude, and they headed toward USS Sterrett. At the Mocha launcher site, 3 missiles launched. At the Aden command position, 3 more. At the mountain battery, 3. At the inland launcher, 3. At the reserve position, 2 more. 18 missiles, 6 directions, staggered by seconds to create maximum overlap on the defender's timeline. The plan required all 18 to arrive within a narrow window, overload the radar, overload the fire control system, force the ship to let some through. 8 seconds after the first launch, USS Sterrett's radar detected the threat. The Aegis system processed the data instantly. 18 inbound contacts, anti-ship missiles, sea-skimming profile, multiple bearings, convergent tracks, all targeting this vessel. The automated alert went ship-wide. Vampire, 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 vampire. Multiple anti-ship missiles inbound, count 18, bearing multiple, all targeting this vessel. Commander Martinez was already moving. General quarters, all hands battle stations, engage all threats. This is not a drill. Fire everything. USS Ralph Johnson, 12 miles away, had received the same radar picture and was already responding before the order came. Sterrett is under attack. 18 missiles inbound, engaging in support. What happened next was the result of years of training, decades of weapons system development, and billions of dollars in military investment. Layer 1. Maximum range engagement. 20 seconds after the first Houthi missile launched, USS Sterrett fired 8 Standard Missile 2s. The SM-2 is a long-range surface-to-air missile designed to intercept incoming threats at the edge of the defensive envelope. These missiles went out to meet the Houthi weapons while they were still 40 kilometers away. Simultaneously, USS Ralph Johnson fired 6 more SM-2s, 14 Standard missiles in the air, tracking, guiding, closing. At 3:43, the 4 Super Hornets overhead received their orders. Sterrett under missile attack. Engage. Inbound threats. The pilots had never practiced this specific scenario in a live environment, but they had drilled it hundreds of times in simulation. They fired 16 AIM-120 AMRAAM missiles, air-to-air weapons being used in an unconventional role against low-flying cruise missiles. It was a difficult shot, but several of them connected. 45 seconds into the engagement, the first intercepts happened. At 40 kilometers from Sterrett, Standard missiles began destroying Houthi weapons. 4 missiles killed cleanly. Explosions over the Gulf of Aden. Debris scattering across the water. AMRAAM missiles from the fighters hit 3 more Houthi missiles, 7 down, 11 remaining. The surviving Houthi missiles pressed inward, 20 kilometers, 15 kilometers. Still coming. Layer 2, medium-range engagement. Both destroyers fired rolling airframe missiles. The RAM is a point defense weapon, shorter range than the SM-2, but highly maneuverable, designed to engage threats that have penetrated the outer defensive layer. 20 rams launched between the 2 ships, 7 more Houthi missiles destroyed, 4 remaining. 8 kilometers from Sterrett, 45 seconds to impact. Layer 3, close-in defense. The Phalanx close-in weapon system. A radar-guided Gatling gun that fires 20mm rounds at very high rates. Multiple mounts between the 2 ships, engaging simultaneously. 3 more Houthi missiles were shredded by the walls of outgoing metal, 1 missile remaining. 2 kilometers from Sterrett, 10 seconds. At this point, the electronic warfare team activated maximum jamming. The Houthi missile used radar guidance to find its target. The jamming system flooded the missile seeker with false signals. Chaff clouds deployed, creating radar reflections designed to pull the missile off course. The final Houthi missile lost its lock. It circled. Lost guidance. Dove into the water 1,000 meters from USS Sterrett. The explosion was visible from the bridge. Silence on the radio circuits. Commander Martinez called all departments for status reports. Engineering, all systems operational. Weapons, all systems ready. Combat, no damage sustained. 18 missiles launched, 18 missiles destroyed. 0 hits, 0 damage, 0 casualties. The defense was perfect, but it was not over. While those 18 missiles were still in the air, while Sterrett was still shooting them down, something else had already launched from USS Abraham Lincoln and USS Baton. The counterstrike had begun. While Houthi missiles were still 3 minutes from their target, Abraham Lincoln launched its response. 16 Super Hornets off the flight deck, each one armed with 4 joint standoff glide bombs and 2 anti-radiation missiles, 128 precision weapons on aircraft alone. 8 F-35C Lightning II stealth fighters also launched, invisible to Houthi radar, each carrying 8 small-diameter bombs, 64 more weapons. USS Baton launched its assault package, 6 Ash-1Z Viper attack helicopters, 48 Hellfire missiles between them, 4 utility helicopters carrying 80 Force Reconnaissance Marines. The Marines were not going to watch from the ship. 4 EA-18 Geller electronic warfare aircraft activated their jamming systems. The Growler does not fire weapons in the conventional sense. It fires energy, jamming signals that blind radar systems, disrupt communications, and make entire air defense networks functionally useless. Every Houthi radar installation within 100 kilometers of the Yemeni coast went dark. Their air defenses were blind before the first American bomb fell. At 3:45, 16 Super Hornets fired 32 anti-radiation missiles. The AGM-88 harm homes on the radio frequency emissions of radar systems. When a radar is transmitting, the harm can find it, follow its signal back to the source, and destroy everything there. 32 radars destroyed in 2 minutes. Every early warning system, every air defense radar, every target acquisition system the Houthis had near the coast, eliminated before the strike aircraft arrived. At 3,047, the main strike packages reached Yemen. All 6 Houthi missile positions that had fired at Sterrett were targeted simultaneously. The Hodeidah coastal battery was hit by 12 joint standoff weapons. The launch vehicles were destroyed. The command bunker was penetrated and collapsed. The ammunition stored nearby caught fire and erupted in the chain of secondary explosions that continued for hours. The Mocha launcher site was struck with 8 weapons. The coastal position was flattened, every launcher obliterated. The Aden command position was hit with 10 weapons. The regional coordination center that had directed the attack was destroyed. The mountain battery, the inland launcher, the reserve position in Sana'a, all of them hit, all of them destroyed, all of them unable to ever fire again. At 3,049, every Houthi missile position that had fired at Sterrett was gone, but the strikes did not stop. At 3:50, USS Sterrett and USS Ralph Johnson, the very ships that had just been attacked, fired a combined salvo of 48 Tomahawk cruise missiles. The ships that the Houthis had tried to sink were now destroying the infrastructure that had made the attack possible. The Houthi Naval Forces Command headquarters in Hodeidah, where attacks on shipping had been coordinated for over a year, was struck by 12 Tomahawks. The headquarters collapsed. The Operations Center was destroyed. The Supreme Political Council Military Coordination Complex in Sana'a was struck by 10 Tomahawks. The command bunker was penetrated. The Hodeidah port military facilities where Houthi attack boats were prepared and missiles were staged received 8 Tomahawks. The port infrastructure was destroyed, fuel storage ignited. An ammunition depot exploded in a fireball, visible for 30 miles. The Aden Naval Base received 6 more. Communications towers collapsed. Regional coordination capability eliminated. 2 Houthi ammunition storage facilities were struck with 8 Tomahawks combined. The secondary explosions from those strikes were enormous. Thousands of rockets, missiles, and artillery rounds that the Houthis had stockpiled over years of smuggling were destroyed in a single chain of detonations. The Houthi Air Operations Command in Sana'a was hit with 4 Tomahawks. The drone program lost its central command capability. At 3:52, the 8 F-35C stealth fighters, which Houthi radar could not see and therefore could not engage, struck the leadership targets. The Houthi Supreme Political Council meeting complex, where the decision to attack the American Armada had been made just hours earlier, was struck with 16 precision bombs. The building was destroyed. Multiple council members were killed. The decision-makers who had given the order to fire at USS Sterrett paid the ultimate price for that decision. 3 Houthi training facilities where anti-ship attack tactics were taught were hit with 48 more bombs. Training centers destroyed. Barracks collapsed. The instructors who had trained the missile crews were gone. At 3:54, the attack helicopters engaged Houthi fast attack boats, attempting to flee Hodeidah port. 8 attack boats that the Houthis had used in previous Red Sea attacks were caught in the open water. They were engaged with 48 Hellfire missiles. All 8 boats were destroyed. At 3:56, the utility helicopters inserted 80 United States Marines on the Yemeni coast near Mocha. Their mission was to physically secure the site of the destroyed missile battery, capture intelligence, gather documents, find electronic equipment, recover anything that could reveal information about Houthi capabilities and their coordination with outside forces. What the Marines found exceeded expectations. Documents, communications equipment, operational records, evidence of direct coordination between the Houthi attack and outside military planners. The Marines extracted at 3:58 with the intelligence secured. At 4, secondary strikes continued. 4 Houthi fuel storage facilities hit with additional precision bombs. Military fuel supply eliminated. 3 Houthi communications relay stations hit. Regional communications infrastructure destroyed. The Houthis could no longer coordinate operations across their territory. 2 Houthi radar production workshops struck. Not just the radar systems already deployed. The facilities where replacement radars were built were eliminated. The Houthis could not replace what had been destroyed. At 4005, the final strike wave launched from USS Lincoln. 8 Super Hornets with 32 precision bombs hit the Houthi military leadership compound in Sana'a, where strategic military decisions were made. The compound was destroyed. Senior military staff who had survived the earlier strikes were killed. The Houthi military command structure was decapitated. At 4:13 in the afternoon, 31 minutes after the Houthis fired their first missile, Operation Guardian Strike was complete. The numbers tell the story. 48 Tomahawk cruise missiles fired from American destroyers, 128 precision glide bombs and small diameter bombs delivered from carrier aircraft, 48 Hellfire missiles fired from attack helicopters, 32 anti-radiation missiles eliminating radar systems, total of 256 precision weapons delivered in 31 minutes. What those weapons destroyed? 6 Houthi missile batteries, all of them. Every launcher that had fired at Sterrett was gone. 8 Houthi military command centers, 4 naval facilities including the main port infrastructure, 3 training centers, 2 ammunition storage complexes containing years' worth of accumulated weapons, 8 attack boats, 32 radar installations, 4 fuel storage facilities, 3 communications relay networks, 29 additional supporting facilities. Estimated Houthi personnel casualties, 867. Allied losses, 0. USS Sterrett, undamaged. Every system operational. USS Ralph Johnson, fully operational. Aircraft losses, none. Marine casualties, 0. Not one American was hurt. Not one American was hurt, scratched. The Houthi military infrastructure that had threatened Red Sea shipping for over a year was not degraded. It was not set back. It was not temporarily disrupted. It was eliminated. At 4:30 in the afternoon on January 27, 2026, USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group resumed its course. The formation transited through the Gulf of Aden as planned. It entered the Red Sea. It passed through the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, the narrow choke point that connects the Gulf of Aden to the Red Sea, the very passage that the Houthis had claimed to control. The Armada passed through at cruising speed. No missiles, no threats, no challenges. The shipping lanes that had been disrupted for over a year were open. International commercial shipping that had been rerouting around Africa, adding weeks to transit times and tens of millions of dollars in costs, could now consider the direct route viable again. The Houthi capability to threaten that shipping was gone. What the Houthis had built over years of outside support, years of weapon shipments, years of training, years of operational experience, was gone in 31 minutes. There is a lesson in this story that goes beyond the tactics and the weapons counts. The Houthis made a fundamental error in threat assessment. They had spent months attacking commercial ships, tankers, cargo vessels. Those ships had no meaningful defenses. Their crews could not fight back. The international response was limited to naval escorts that intercepted some Houthi weapons but could not reach back and destroy the launch sites at the same time. The Houthis interpreted that limited response as weakness. They were not reading weakness, they were reading restraint. There is a significant difference between those two things, and mistaking one for the other is a strategic error that can be fatal. The limited American response to attacks on commercial shipping was a choice, a political choice to keep the conflict from escalating, to protect shipping without starting a wider war, but that restraint had limits, clearly defined limits that American military planners had already decided upon. Attacking warships protecting a carrier strike group was past those limits. The Houthis crossed a line they did not fully understand existed, and a response demonstrated what American military power looks like when the decision has been made to solve the problem rather than manage it. 256 weapons. 31 minutes. Everything the Houthis had built to threaten the Red Sea, gone. One was restraint, the other was decision. It is worth pausing to appreciate what the defensive success actually represented. 18 anti-ship missiles, coordinated launch, multiple directions, sea skimming profile, technology specifically designed to defeat ship defenses, 0 hits. The Aegis combat system is often described in technical terms that do not convey what it actually does. It tracks hundreds of targets simultaneously. It calculates the flight path of every inbound threat. It assigns the optimal defensive weapon to each threat. It sequences the engagement to make sure the right weapons go to the right threats at the right time. It does this faster than any human operator could think through the problem. The standard missile 2s fired were guided by continuous radar updates all the way to intercept. They did not simply fly to a predicted point in space. They maneuvered in flight, correcting course as the target maneuvered, closing to kill. The Phalanx system that handled the last missiles is a last resort that has been terrifying weapons designers for decades. When everything else has been exhausted and something is still coming at you, the Phalanx fires. On January 27th, the system worked exactly as designed. Every layer of the defense performed: outer missiles, fighter aircraft, medium-range missiles, close-in guns, electronic warfare, perfect. The reason the American counterstrike was so devastating so quickly was not just the weapons, it was the intelligence. United States intelligence agencies had been mapping Houthi military infrastructure for over a year. Every missile battery they knew about, every command center, every communications node, every leadership facility. The coordinates for every target struck on January 27th were already in the system before the Houthis fired their first missile that day. When the decision was made to respond with full force, American targeting officers did not have to figure out where to strike. The list was ready. The coordinates were confirmed. The weapons loads were pre-planned. This is the part of American military power that is least visible and most consequential. The satellite systems watching from orbit, the signals intelligence platforms intercepting communications, the human intelligence networks providing ground truth, the analysts synthesizing all of that into a comprehensive picture of what the enemy has and where it is. By the time a Houthi missile battery fired, American intelligence had likely already been watching it for weeks. The Houthi commanders believed their positions were secret. They believed their mountain batteries and inland launchers were hidden. They believed their reserve positions were unknown. They were wrong on every count. The intelligence picture was complete before the first shot of Operation Guardian Strike was fired. That is why 31 minutes was enough to destroy everything. The aspect of the operation that received the least attention afterward was what the 80 Marines did on the ground in Yemen. Force Reconnaissance Marines are among the most highly trained forces in the United States military. They are trained for deep reconnaissance, direct action, intelligence gathering, and operating in difficult environments. Inserting 80 of them onto the Yemeni coast within 15 minutes of the start of an air campaign was a significant operation. The mission at the Mocha missile site was time-sensitive. Wreckage of a missile battery tells you less than the documents and communications equipment inside the command post. Physical intelligence, captured materials, hardware, papers, electronic devices is often the most valuable kind. What those Marines recovered was confirmation of something American intelligence had suspected but needed to prove. The attack was not an independent Houthi decision. The operational coordination between the Houthi military command and outside military planners was documented in what the Marines found at that site. That intelligence had implications beyond the Red Sea. It confirmed outside involvement in a direct attack on United States naval vessels. The Marines were on the ground and extracted in under 3 minutes of planned exposure. The entire ground phase of the operation was complete before most observers realized Marines had been deployed at all. After January 27th, the Red Sea strategic situation changed. The Houthi capability to threaten shipping was not merely degraded. The infrastructure had been physically destroyed, launchers gone, command centers gone, train crews gone, leadership decimated, ammunition stockpiles destroyed, radar systems eliminated, communications networks severed. Rebuilding that capability would require years and significant outside investment, and doing so would risk repeating the experience of January 27th. The shipping lanes through the Red Sea and the Bab el-Mandeb Strait became substantially safer almost immediately. The insurance market for Red Sea transits, which had been pricing in enormous risk premiums for months, began to adjust. Commercial shipping companies began reassessing their routing decisions. The Suez Canal traffic statistics, which had declined sharply during the period of peak Houthi activity, began to recover. None of that happened because someone gave a speech. It happened because military capability was brought to bear on a specific military problem for 31 minutes. January 27, 2026 will be studied for a long time, not primarily for what it says about American power, for what it says about the danger of incomplete threat assessment. The Houthis had real operational experience. They had successfully attacked over 100 commercial vessels. They had forced major disruptions to global shipping. They had survived repeated retaliatory strikes for months. They had become confident. Confidence built on successful actions against undefended commercial targets. That confidence did not transfer to engaging a full carrier strike group with pre-positioned defenses, pre-authorized responses, layered weapon systems, pre-mapped target sets, and political authorization to eliminate the threat permanently. The Houthis thought they were escalating the same conflict they had been fighting. They were not. They had started a new one they were not equipped to fight. The video they released that morning said soon. America said now. The lesson is not about military capability alone, though that is on full display here. The lesson is about the difference between a threat that is being managed and a threat that is crossed into elimination territory. For months, Houthi attacks were being managed, intercepted where possible, responded to with proportional strikes, contained without being eliminated. The attack on January 27th crossed a line that changed the calculation completely. When you are being managed, you face an opponent exercising restraint. When you cross into elimination territory, you face an opponent who has made a different decision entirely. The Houthis did not understand the difference. USS Sterrett survived. The Armada sailed through. The Red Sea is open, and the Houthi military capability that took years to build was gone before sunset on January 27, 2026, 3:42 in the afternoon. Gulf of Aden, January 27, 2026. 18 missiles left their launchers in Yemen. They were aimed at a single American destroyer. The plan was to overwhelm it, sink it, clear the path, show the world that Houthis could stop the American Armada. 31 minutes later, every one of those missiles was at the bottom of the Gulf of Aden. Every position that fired them was rubble. Every command center that ordered the attack was destroyed. Every training facility that had prepared the crews was gone. Every radar that had tracked the target was eliminated. Every boat that had supported the operation was sunk. Every fuel depot that sustained the military operation was burning. The Houthis said soon. They kept their promise and launched. America kept a different promise, and the Armada sailed on. If this story was worth your time, the subscribe button is right there. More stories like this one are coming.